One of the things with the benchmarking resources that are available right now in the marketplace is that there's somewhat of a tug of war between reports that are very time intensive and take quite a bit of the advisor's time, and then the reports that are compelling and then that don't really do much for the plan sponsor. And so if you think about it in a visual perspective, you'd want the your benchmarking resource to fall somewhere in the quick and concise, but also compelling section of that spectrum. And we believe we've done that with PlanFees by allowing advisors to really easily, these reports are just, 5 or 8 pages long, to break that down in a really digestible way for the plan sponsor to say, here's how your record keeping fees stack up, here's how your investment fees stack up, etc. So with that background there, talking a little bit about PlanFees, let's talk a little bit more about the benchmarking process itself. So in the past, most advisors typically relied on live bid RFPs to satisfy their benchmarking requirements for their plan sponsors. And one of the problems with that is that that can be a really hard way for a plan sponsor to digest the information. We've all taken a look at those quotes that record keepers provide. And even if they are easy to read, they can be a little bit nuanced in terms of, how are the investment expenses stacking up? How do the record keeping expenses stack up? And so one of the things that we believe is that an advisor on an annual basis should be benchmarking those fees to make sure that they're still in line with the industry, and really that they're more in line with plans of similar sizes. And so really the first step with the fee benchmarking process is going to be identifying your fees, getting your hands on a fee disclosure. And this goes for plan sponsors or prospects. Getting your hands on a 408B2 or even sometimes a 5500 can be just enough information you need to take a look at the plan. And then comes the next spot that we kind of talked about a little bit earlier is what's reasonable? How do you determine reasonableness? And that's where we believe that PlanFees comes in as an annual benchmarking resource that allows in those off years where you're not conducting a live bid RFP and getting quotes from other record keepers. We believe that this PlanFees, both of the reports that are available, are a great way to satisfy that need to determine reasonableness. So again, kind of going back to that visual that I talked about with fee benchmarking, you have a lot of resources out in the marketplace right now that either take too long, they're inaccurate, they're too expensive, or it's just an actual book. And in 2021, I don't think a client would be all too impressed if you lugged in your backpack and pulled out the Farmer's Almanac to benchmark the retirement plan. But really, when we saw this at PlanFees, we saw that there was kind of a market inefficiency in terms of a solution that's both quick and easy for advisors to use, but also has verified and important data for plan sponsors to know. And so looking at the spectrum of benchmarking reports that we have out in the industry right now, you have your x-axis, which is, how much time does the advisor need to take creating this report, and the y-axis here, which how compelling is it to the plan sponsor? A report is great if it's fast and really pretty with nice colors, but if the information isn't compelling to the plan sponsor, it's wasted time. And so with the benchmarking resources that are out there, we have, in the lower right quadrant here, easy to use, but doesn't lead to desired results like winning new business or lowering fees and driving participant outcomes. So a lot of things that I've seen advisors do. Now, I promise I have talked to advisors who have actually done this before, as well as some participants. Googling how much does my 401k cost? Just in case you're curious, that Google search brings over 10 million hits with a lot of varying data. So you might have participants or plan sponsors who are in charge of retirement plans. They don't know how to determine the reasonableness of their fees. So they're just going to go to their old friend Google, like they're trying to learn how to tie a bow tie or something like that. And then we have our, classic book materials, which are great and do have good information, but it's not presentable to a client. And it's also information that's static in a specific set of time. So as soon as a couple months passes, that information in the book might already be outdated. And so we want to provide advisors with a database that's constantly updating so that the information is accurate and relevant to that time where the advisor is benchmarking the report. Our top left quadrant here is going to be those compelling reports that also take a lot of time to create. And this is probably the most popular one I see with advisors creating benchmarking reports. Just going, the old school spreadsheet, getting the quotes and typing in the different line items, which is an effective way to benchmark retirement plans. It's incredibly time consuming and almost impossible to do for prospects. But it's really any sort of live bid system that you have, even if it's not on a spreadsheet. If it's something where you're using a resource to gather quotes virtually and then compiling them into a report, more often than not, those are going to be more on the time intensive side. And are going to lead, again, they're not great for prospecting. It's more just to fulfill that ERISA duty of every 3 to 5 years, benchmark the fees of the plans. Getting towards the middle, more where we want to be, is the great reports that doesn't lead to any actual change. So this is something that's becoming more and more popular that we're seeing in our industry right now is kind of small fintech startups that are offering reports that on the surface level seem like a great idea and seem really easy for an advisor to use, but the data just isn't there to drive the outcomes that the advisor is looking for. And then going into, in-depth benchmarking or quick proposal systems, you'll see a lot of those in the industry in terms of what to utilize. And then in the top right corner, if any of you are familiar with how these graphs work, this is where you want to be, the Holy Grail. I might be a little bit biased here, but PlanFees provides that Holy Grail for you in terms of a concise and compelling report that's going to drive participant outcomes and help positively affect change in plans. That's also quick and easy for an advisor to utilize. So that's where we stand as PlanFees. Thanks a lot for watching today, folks. Again, my name's Luke Vandermillen. I'm with the PlanFees team. I can be reached at 949-305-3718 or lukev@planfees.com. That's V as in Veronica, lukev@planfees.com. Thanks again and have a great rest of your day.